$1 million. Free to play. You just need to survive. It's the Fanatics NFL Survivor Pool. Pick one team to win each week. Get it right, move on. Get it wrong, you're out. The last fans standing take home a guaranteed $1 million cash prize. And for every player who joins, we add $1 to the pot, up to $10 million. The Fanatics NFL Survivor Pool. Play free on the Fanatics app. App access open to all. Must be 21 plus and joined by 9/8 to play. No purchase necessary. U.S. only. Void where prohibited. Subject to complete terms. See fanatics.com/game rules.
Welcome back to I Want That Too, the podcast where Disney merch meets Disney history. And I'm entertainment writer Jim Hill, and as always, I'm joined by the lovely Lauren Hersey, and we're in the middle of Labor Day, right? What is the Hersey family up to for Labor Day?
Not much. Just doing these podcasts, and I was binging some Netflix today, so in my opinion, it's a good day. How about you? You feeling better?
I feel better. I know I sound like a corpse, but I do. I feel better. By the way, what were you binging?
Well, this morning I watched what was it called? An Oxford Summer, something like that. It was with the girl that was in the Descendants movies as Evie.
Okay.
It was really, really a nice movie, kind of sad, but I'm still finishing up the Gilded Age, so no spoilers.
Okay. We will talk further when you can. But
yes.
All right. Anyway, folks, this past week actually has been Disney Princess Week. So on this week's show, we're going to talk about that?
Yeah, so we're wrapping up Disney Princess Week's merch drops. I have to tell you about this adult rom-com book series that I found out. Yeah. And it is Disney princesses plopped into modern day. I couldn't think of another word but messiness to use. So it's really fun. What Disney fans are really thinking about the new villains line for Bath & Body. And then we're going to talk about some food and wine merch. And we're part 2ing it up on original Disney merchandising / cereal. Is that right for the feature?
That we are. Okay, but before we do that, folks, we, of course, have to acknowledge our sponsor. And this episode of I Want That Too is brought to you by our friends at UnlockMagic.com, which is the same trusted team behind the DVC rental store and DVC resale market. And if you're planning a Disney trip, they've got the best deals on Walt Disney World tickets, including the lowest prices on party tickets to Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween Party, according to That's it. You got to move on that fast, folks. Don't delay. Likewise, tickets for Mickey's Very Merry Christmas Party and even Jollywood Nights. So whether it's your family's big vacation or just a quick weekend getaway, visit UnlockMagic.com to grab the best ticket deals and make your next Disney trip just a bit more magical. Okay, so again, we were talking about Disney Princess Week, which, by the way, as part of that, in fact, I should have mentioned this on this week's Fine Tuning, but I just discovered that over on Disney Plus, they have, I guess it's a Disney Lego thing where it's...
Yes!
Yeah, what is that about?
Okay, so the Princess Week was jam-packed. That's why I wanted to bring it up. And I know that this was Destination D23 week, so there's lots of Disney news, but there were so many good merch drops and things that were a part of this. I wanted to just dive into it. So excuse me as I put my Jim Hill hat on for a second here. And just to give you some...
What this means, folks, long, pointless story about to get underway. Just warning you, get comfy.
Yeah,
okay.
I'm more of a bullet point kind of gal, but I'm going to do my best Jim Hill here and say, for context, if you're not familiar with Disney Princess Week, this started back in 2021 as a part of the Disney Ultimate Princess Celebration. So the idea at that point was to dedicate 1 week every August to celebrating princesses, not just in the parks, but across streaming, retail, charity programs. So now, I mean, we've been doing it for a while, so this is now a tradition. And so girls and guys, I think it's put your tiaras on and let's dive in here.
Well, sadly, my tiara is in the shop right now. But every year they build it out a little more. It's no longer just, a couple of meet and greets and social media posts. I mean, now this is a full-blown global campaign, right?
Yeah, so this year it had a theme, as they all do, and it was Create Your World. So the campaign ran from August 25th to the 31st, and they leaned into the idea that princesses, inspire imagination and self-expression. So just breaking down, now I have my Lauren Hersey hat back on because I'm going bullet point style for the highlights here. So they had a brand new, I would say it was like a music video on YouTube, and I feel like this had like 10 million views or something crazy, and it was all princesses make magic. It was very cute, and there were some Tony Award winners participating. It was Hans from Frozen, I believe, but with this, it was these little girls, and they were throwing their mom a birthday party, and it was a rendition of Be Our Guest. I mean, it was what it was. So then at Disneyland, they had the princess concert with a lot of the voice legends that we know, like Miss Jodie Benson, Paige O'Hara, Anika Noni, Rose, and, okay, help me with this last one.
Ulali?
Is it Alula? Aluli? Kabalo?
There we go. We'll take that.
Sorry, if we butchered those names. But that was a big highlight. And then on Disney Plus, like Jim mentioned, we had the Lego Disney Princess Villains Unite, because Disney is all in on villains, which, we'll talk about a little bit more. And then, I always like to shout out that Disney did work with Make-A-Wish to grant more than 100 princess-themed wishes from around the world.
Good for them.
I always like Disney giving back.
Absolutely. But, of course, the way that Disney is allowed to give back is because, well, the merchandise machine is going strong. And this year, Spotlight wasn't just on the princesses themselves, but also on their sidekicks. So think Pascal, Flounder, and even Mushu.
Yeah, I mean, they're capitalizing on the villains, and they're like, okay, well, those counterparts work, so what else can we do here? So leaning into the pals, the sidekicks. So first up in the merch, if you're a Lego fan, there was the Lego Disney Princess Castle and Royal Pet set. Now, it's so weird. I was just talking to Eric and Lainey about this the other day. At one point, Lainey had a bedroom that was Disney Palace Pets, which were the sidekicks that they're calling them now.
Oh, I remember
and
that
so
one.
they're
Okay, yep.
Yeah. So what's old is new again. Totally new generation of kids coming up. But in this big giant Lego set, you get the 5 princesses, which are Ariel, Rapunzel, Mulan, and more. And then we get the friends, which are Flounder, Pascal, and the first time ever, Mushu.
Mushu.
So obviously we're getting Milan, yeah. So that's I would say a big deal, right?
Mushu in Lego form? What is that? That's 3 red bricks, right? Click, click. All right. Yeah. All right. Okay.
I don't know. Maybe there's an anniversary for Mulan or something coming up I don't know about.
I don't know about that. I mean, you have to understand that Nancy and I were very friendly with the folks working on Mulan. In fact, my dad, interesting story, they slipped us an early model sheet for Mushu, and my dad, who did wood carving as a hobby, created an old-fashioned sort of walking toy of Mushu, which we brought to the Florida studio, I want to say 18 months before the movie came out. And Tom Bancroft, who was the guy working on Mushu, his brother Tony was one of the directors of the movie with Barry Cook. He walked that thing through the entire studio. It's like, look, it's our first toy. I mean, it's crummy and it's made out of wood, but it's our first toy.
That's exciting. Yeah. I love the origin stories.
There we go.
So moving on, no more Mushu, but more pets. So this one is the Disney Princess Pet Palace, and this one is from Mattel. And there are 7 princess-inspired play areas and 3 animal sidekicks, not any that are Mushu. But we have Perla from Cinderella, Max. That kid. No, not Max. Who's Max?
Yeah, no, I'm looking. It's a very
And then
tiny
Tangled?
Max. Wow. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So another one worth checking out if you got little girls in your family.
Well, okay. Now, if we pivot over to, and if you have little girls, that means you have princess dresses. It just goes without saying. And it Jack specific. They have their Majestics dress line, which again, also we're leaning into the sidekicks thing so that your daughters can, or your sons, can dress up as Disney princesses and keep their companion right by their side, right?
Yes, they're very cute. Then they're removable. So like we have Little Mermaid with Flounder, and we've got Pascal with Punzi over there. All right, switching gears to older fans, because that's probably who we got listening here. We always got to drop cake worthy. They have a princess line, but the big story here, I think, is that we did get some new Pandora princess rings. So we got 6 gold rings, and they finally fixed Belle's design, and so the internet is rejoicing. So finally, it is a gold ring with a red rose, folks.
Okay.
That is they're giving the people what we want.
Well,
And then there's also Jasmine and Tiana and Rapunzel and Belle. But, everybody's happy now.
Cool. And what else we got? Anything, again, for us book nerds, or?
Yeah, we're all in that camp. But this one is, maybe skewing a little younger unless you're a collector. But there is the Ultimate Princess box set of 12 little golden books. That is Snow White, Cinderella, Sleeping Beauty, Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, Mulan, Princess and the Frog, Tangled, and Moana. And they come in a keepsake box. So, nice collectible gift here. And speaking of books, I mean, this is the one that I'm like the most excited to talk about because I'm going to be digging into this. So have you heard of this meant to be series of books? These are the adult rom-coms where the Disney princesses are put into like real life situations.
No, but as somebody who is a longtime fan of Enchanted, the Amy Adams film, this sounds like fun. Where did this come from?
Okay, so the way I learned about it was I was on that perks.disneyplus.com just in advance of the show, doing what I do, delivering you news of things that you could save money on. And so I saw that you could win the entire series of this. And I was like, what is this? Are these for little kids? And so it looks like there are 5 books in this series. And I got to tell you the premise of some of these, because they're incredible. All right, so we'll start with Mulan, since we were talking about Mushu. So this one is called Worth Fighting For, and it's a Mulan-inspired story about a young woman who must prove her strength and protect her family's legacy, discovering courage and love in the process. All right, that one's not that great. Let's see, we're moving on to Punzi here. This is Tangled Up in You, which sounds like a love story. And this one is of a sheltered young woman stepping into the world for the first time, independence, adventure, and romance while untangling her complicated past. All right, still, it's kind of like, meh. Now we get to a good one. We're talking Ariel. All right, so The Little Mermaid is reimagined as a rising pop star longing for her own voice who falls in love with a sound engineer and is fighting for her creative freedom.
Okay.
What, you in?
That's an interesting spin on The Little Mermaid. Okay. They do the same thing with Belle? If so, how?
Oh my gosh. Okay. So I have to tell you the last 2 because I think that like we're building up here. So Belle, Beauty and the Beast, is about an ambitious publishing assistant tasked with helping a grumpy celebrity finish his memoir, only to discover the man behind the beastly facade.
Okay. All right. That's an interesting bend on the story. But there's one more.
Oh my gosh, this is the best one. This one is called If the Shoe Fits. Oh my gosh, I can't even. Okay, this is a Cinderella-inspired rom-com about a plus-size, aspiring shoe designer who joins a reality dating show and unexpectedly finds both fame and love.
Okay. There's.
I don't feel like you're feeling it.
Well, no. You have to understand. I live in a Hallmark house. Okay. I'm just weighing these. I've observed Nancy watching her Hallmark movies, so I'm using my Hallmark yardstick here, and these are all. I mean, I'm not going to lie. If Hallmark did these as actual films, I think they'd hold up. I think they'd be entertaining. So just kind of intrigued as to how you do this as a book. But I'd be willing to take a stab at reading one of these. So...
Okay, well, if I do, I'm starting with If a Shoe Fits. But right now, I am about midway through the Disney adult book, so which is fascinating, by the way. So this would be on my next up. So can't talk about princesses without their counterparts. So let's flip the beer over to the villain side of the street.
Okay, so, all right. And we talked on a recent episode of I Want That Too about the Bath & Body Works Disney Villains collab. It had a pre-sale, and fans had opinions, right?
Yeah, lots of opinions. And unfortunately, I felt like they were aligned with mine. So it's mixed, right? You're always going to have your just ride or die fans who are going to love everything. But for the most part, I was not super impressed. I did get on. I set my alarm. I was like one of the first, hopefully to get the pre-sale items. There were only 16 items in the pre-sale. And I thought maybe there would be like additional villains or things to come. And there were not. So you could go down one path or the other, which was the Maleficent or the Evil Queen. And I did buy, 2 or 3 items from each collection to try them out. The coolest thing that I saw, the Maleficent items, they look like they're glow in the dark. So I'll be anxious to see what it's like when they arrive. But, a day later, there was nothing really sold out. People were frustrated because, the candles were $40. There was no free shipping really option. The products that they actually did have, there just wasn't a ton, to choose from. But the biggest complaint of all was that with the rewards program, you can kind of save up your points and apply them towards like a free full-size item or something like that. And you weren't allowed to use your points that you saved up for these. So it did not land, which was a shame because the princesses, to me, were pretty flawless.
I have to say, this comes across as kind of a self-inflicted wound. I mean, given what you just mentioned about, the Disney Princesses launch and understanding how enthusiastic people were there, it just sounds like none of the lessons from that early offering were applied to this. And it sounds like it's kind of biting in the butt enthusiasm-wise.
Yeah, which is so strange because, I'm sure you've saw all the news that came out of Destination D23, and they had a specific villains panel, and they were talking about everything and talking about what's to come for the, villains land and internationally, and then to put something, out that is what I would say would be lackluster. Now, the full release, general release, doesn't go out until the 3rd, so maybe they'll redeem themselves a bit in the stores, but like that pre-sale option is like 5 items down on the list on Bath and Body Works website right now. So I guess we're gonna have to stay tuned.
Okay. Well, thanks for keeping an eye on that, and let's hope that turns around. So, all right. What else you got this week?
All right. Well, quickly, we just need to talk about food and wine for a sec. And the first thing that caught my eye was not an item specifically, but I was on a Facebook group and it was a zoomed in, sign for magic bands. And then underneath of it, it says, not for internal or subdermal use.
Oh, dear Lord. I know exactly where this...
You know where I'm going.
Okay. To explain, folks, a few years back, there was this woman in Florida that had the RFID chip that powered her magic band surgically implanted in her arm. She had this custom manufactured from a company called Dangerous Things. And, with the idea that now she could just literally put her hand down on a touch point and buy something or, come into the park that way. Anyway, this story starts to get traction online, which is when we start seeing Disney post this warning, not for internal or subdermal use, on every magic band.
Which is insane to me. Like, I've lost my magic band, before. I remember the one time I told you Disney was so wonderful and they mailed it back to me. But I never considered being that girl, like to put something underneath my skin. And, I've been, like, this was 2 years ago, I believe.
Yep.
Maybe even 3 at this point. But I've never seen the label. And someone just took a picture of it at Food and Wine. And so I had to dig in and say, like, what does that even mean?
Look, we've all heard the Florida man jokes. To my knowledge, this is the first time I've heard a Florida woman joke. But at the same time, there's a lot of folks out there who are into body modification. So this woman is not the first. But at the same time, this is why Disney felt the need to put that warning label there. So if we could move to safer territory here, food, wine, merch. Okay, you were just talking about food and wine, which just got underway at Epcot. And as I understand it, there's a bunch of standout items over there.
Yes, and if you're looking at food, I saw that Len's crew at Touring Plans, they went and tasted everything on the first day. So there's I believe, YouTube video about that. But this is merch specific, and to Lauren, the standout collection is the Muppets Lab collection. I know you saw this.
I did. I have to admit, I love the fact that Dr. Bunsen, Honeydew, and Beaker are back in the spotlight. In fact, I don't know if you've heard that the story for Rocket Roller Coasters starring the Muppets is, as you go to board, you're informed that Dr. Bunsen, Honeydew, and Beaker have tweaked the limo, which is why you are going to get there a little faster than you expected. And so now your crazy ride is thanks to the folks at Muppet Labs, which I love. But anyway, so out ahead of that, Bunsen and Beaker have taken over Epcot this year. I mean...
Yes! And thank goodness, I'm so excited to see them in Epcot, nonetheless. And I mean, I shouldn't be too surprised because there was the Brewing Lab in the Odyssey last year when I was there. But they didn't really have merch. So this line, it includes shirts, drinkware pins, and then the lug bag, which, people are, I was on Reddit and, in the Facebook Facebook groups, and people are really excited about the Lug bag. And as a reminder, Lug was the sponsor of Destination D23.
Yes, they were. Now, when they were doing the Brew Wing Lab in the Odyssey, did you get in there to taste any of this Beaker and Bunsen, the experimenting they were doing with the flavors?
Oh my gosh. Yes. And I swear that these were some of the best chicken wings I think I've ever had in my life.
Wow.
And I'm not exaggerating. And I'm typically, I like Disney food, but I wouldn't consider myself to be a foodie. But I would get on a plane right now to go and eat some of these chicken wings and buy a Muppet Lab shirt.
Wow.
Hands down.
I am kind of stunned to hear that. But again, I mean.
Do not sleep on the peanut butter and jelly chicken wings. Oh my gosh.
Hey, wow.
So good. And if you're into pickles, they have a pickle milkshake. And that's not my particular jam.
Okay. But this is not the only merch story coming out of Epcot. I've also been hearing that people attending the event are loving the Chef Figment collection, which aprons, oven mitts, mugs, all in that very bright purple Figment style. And what is it? Instagram. I mean, you can't not see people over there showing off their Figment kitchen gear, right?
Yes, and it's so popular that they keep bringing it back year after year, because I actually have my own Figment apron and chef hat, and I believe I have the oven mitts from one of the past Food and Wine. That is quite the visual that we've got going on here, but people keep buying it, so they keep dishing it out. But this year they added a Chef Mickey line too. So move over, Figgy. We got Mickey's in the kitchen.
Okay.
So this one is more like classic Disney. It's kitchenware. There's Loungefly, and these are things that you keep in your kitchen all year round.
Got it.
My Figment apron and my hat only come out on special occasions.
On the other hand, if you're one of those folks who likes to have the shirt that tells your friends and your family where you went, the festival logo collection, another reliable hit. So we got tumblers, we get trays, we get coasters. These are the sorts of souvenirs that fans use when they get home, and let's be honest, they also show off a bit. Oh yes, I was at Food and Wine this year.
Or you go to the Character Warehouse and you get it all there, because you could always get some good festival merch at the Character Warehouse.
That's true. 6 months later. But also
yes.
true.
Yeah, and I wish that they would switch it up a little bit, honestly. They did have a Spirit jersey that looked like, I don't know, kind of Spaceship Earth-ish, but to me it kind of all looks the same. So,
by the way, speaking of Spirit jerseys, I have to acknowledge that just this week I got a box from Ms. Hersey, which I mentioned months ago during the show that there was an orange bird Spirit jersey, bright enough to block out the sun. And I said, oh, that's kind of cute. And so what shows up in a box here at the house in this past week, but a lovely Spirit jersey that Lauren got me. Also, an orange bird shaped, what is it? A little gardening.
It's a watering can. It's a watering can.
So I'm not going to lie. That may wind up going to my grandnephew, who for some reason is very obsessed with orange bird. But on the other hand, my bright orange shirt, it's so explaining to Lauren, this is eminently practical here in the fall in southern New Hampshire, because it means I can wear this outside and not get shot by deer hunters. They're like, well, if it were sun-kissed orange season, I could shoot whatever that giant round thing is in the yard. But, it's a guy doing yard work. Never mind.
And that one was really cool, actually. I didn't see anything like it, this go around. That's more of a flower and garden. But it was like a towel material was the bottom of the Spirit jersey. And the girl at the UPS store that was helping me get that to you, she was like, that is so cute. I absolutely have to have one. And I couldn't tell, folks, when he was saying, he's like, I'm going to get me one of those, if that was just a, that's a nice shirt, or if he was being serious. So when Nate and I went to the what's it called? The cast member property control.
Property control. Yes.
I ran it by him, and we were both cracking ourselves up. So it was a win. Glad you liked it. But anyway, it seems like, from all the things that we got with the Muppets, the AP stuff, there was more new Remy pass holder merch that people were looking about. I think this is shaping up to be a pretty good festival, if you ask me.
Well, cool. And thanks for wading into this. And now, folks, we're going to take a brief commercial break. And when we get back, we're going to revisit the story of Kay Kamen and get back to our Disney serial saga. But first, this.
Sweat moves you forward. Degree Antiperspirant is here to make sure it never holds you back. Clocking in, sweat. Lunch meeting, sweat. Biking home, sweat. Degree Advanced is for the hustlers who put in the sweat. The world's #1 antiperspirant with up to 72-hour sweat and odor protection. Degree, here for sweat. Try it today.
Running a business comes with a lot of what-ifs. But luckily, there's a simple answer to them. Shopify. It's the commerce platform behind millions of businesses, including Thrive Cosmetics and Momofuku. And it'll help you with everything you need. From website design and marketing to boosting sales and expanding operations, Shopify can get the job done and make your dream a reality. Turn those what-ifs into... Sign up for your $1 per month trial at shopify.com/special offer.
You're tuned into Auto Intelligence, live from Auto Trader, where data, tools, and your preferences sync to make your car shopping smooth.
They're searching inventory.
Oh, yeah.
They find what you need.
They're gonna find it.
You can make a budget for your wallet to help you succeed. Pricing's precise and true.
So true.
It's smarter car shopping.
Ooh.
Just for you.
Oh, it's just for you.
Ooh.
Find your next ride at autotrader.com. Powered by Auto Intelligence.
And we're back. Lauren, I'm not going to lie. I was very gratified that we got such a strong reaction to last week's feature on this podcast, which was when, as we were shining a spotlight on various Disney serials, we also took a look at the career of Kay Kamen, who from 1932 to his tragic death in October of 1949 was Walt Disney's Productions' sole licensing rep, and not SOUL, but as in the only one, single, the only guy. And Kay Kamen, definitely a colorful character, Lauren. One that a number of Disney historians have previously thought about writing books about. In fact, I Want That Too fan Keith B. wrote in this past week to say that as recently as last year, 2024, he spoke with the folks behind the Hyperion Historical Alliance. And for those of you who don't know, the Hyperion Historical Alliance is this, it's this organization. In fact, I'll quote from the group's charter now. Professional organization that seeks to advance member-initiated projects related to Disney history. Now, the HHA formed back in 2014, and over the past decade, Lauren, they published a trio of terrific monographs. There was the Making of Walt Disney's Fun and Fancy Free that was published back in December of 2018. And then there was The Origins of Walt Disney's True Life Adventures, and that was published in December of 2021. And finally, more recently, there was Walt and El Grupo in Latin America, which hit store shelves December of 2023. And in addition to these 3 hardcover books, well worth reading, by the way, I've got copies of all 3 in my research library. The Hyperion Historical Alliance also publishes an annual, this softcover magazine-like thing. There was an issue that hit newsstands 2019, 2020, and then because of the pandemic, there was a combined issue for 2021 and 22, and finally we got another annual in 2023. And anyway, the folks associated with the Hyperion Historical Alliance, they regularly dig down into some pretty obscure aspects of Disney company history, which is why Keith B. thought they'd be the perfect folks to get behind a book about Kay Kamen. But when Keith broached this topic to the powers that be at HHA, that this was their response. And the answer that I got, again, Keith wrote to me last week about this. The answer that I got was the massive amount of research that would need to be done, not just here in the U.S., but in Europe and other places, to do justice to Kay Kamen's life and career would just likely be too costly in terms of both time and money. And now, mind you, I was dropped as a child, Lauren. So, when I hear something like this, my immediate thought is, well, why not set up a GoFundMe for Keith B? Have Disney history fans literally put their money where their mouth is and fund the initial research for what I'm sure would be an absolute fascinating book. One that would shine a spotlight on the first 25 years, 1923 to 1948 of Walt Disney Studios. But the very fact that the Hyperion Historical Alliance shied away from doing something of size about Kay Kamen, when they previously shined a spotlight on stuff that the Disney studio did in the 40s, like Walt's trip to Latin America, or that package feature, Fun and Fancy Free, not to mention the start of the studio's Academy Award-winning True Life Adventures. That tells you something, Lauren, about how the company feels today about Kay Kamen? I mean,
I know. I'm like, what don't we know?
Well, see, but now this is the thing. If you really think about it, what modern media company would have ever made a deal like that? Giving one man,
None.
There we go. One man had the rights to be that studio's sole licensing representative. And not to mention then agreeing to give Kay half of whatever licensing deals he managed to set up for the Mouse House. And these days, what's fascinating when you talk with the folks who work on the parks experience and product side of the Disney, and you bring up the issue of Roy's and Walt's arrangement with Kay, they compare that deal to the one that Elvis Presley signed with Colonel Tom Parker back in August of 55, which, remember, in exchange for becoming Elvis's special advisor, Colonel Tom Parker then got the right to claim 50 cents of every dollar that Elvis Presley earned on anything.
Oh my gosh.
And so, to group Kay Kamen's deal with the Disney brothers with which even today is considered one of the worst business deals in Hollywood history. That's saying something. Now, mind you, Kay Kamen made millions, tens of millions of dollars for Disney Studio, which Walt and Roy happily accepted. And Kamen admittedly worked very hard for his 50% cut of all that Disney licensing money. I mean, for example, twice a year, he'd meet with department store reps in places like Macy's and Gimbel's. And first, he'd walk the store and literally make sure that all of the Disney licensed items were receiving premium placement. But then Kay felt that the other big important part of his job is he'd talk about, wait do you hear this other film that Disney's making, and you're going to want those toys. Now, at this point in today's show, I guess I should mention that I was friends with Tom Tumbush, who many people consider to be the pioneer of documenting Disney collectibles. In fact, the very first year that Tom published the initial issue of his illustrated Disneyana catalog and price guide, this was 1985. Lauren, that was the very same year that the company invited me out to California to cover Disneyland's 30th anniversary.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's at that event that I first meet Disney legend Ward Kimball, who was then nice enough to invite me out to his home in San Gabriel, California, when they were next doing a steam-up party. And this is when the Kimball family would fire up the Grizzly Flats Railroad, which was this full-size steam train that Ward and his wife Betty ran through the orange grove they had in their backyard. Anyway, I'm at the steam-up party. I meet Tom Tumbush, who also friendly with Ward and Betty Kimball. And as we get to talking, I learned that Tom isn't just a Disney history buff, but he's also a musical theater enthusiast. In fact, here's a cool thing. Very early on in his career, Mr. Tumbush worked for Kermit Bloomgarden as a publicist, and Kermit Bloomgarden was the producer back in '57 who mounted the original production of Meredith Willson's The Music Man. He's the guy who brought this now beloved show first to Broadway. Now, anyway, given that we shared similar interests, Disney history, and a love of musical comedy, Tom and I became fast friends. And given that Mr. Tumbush was based out of Ohio, whenever I went out to do Dayton, Disneyana, and by the way, this year was the first in more than a decade where I didn't take part in that annual fan event. Anita and Gary Scheingold, the very nice folks who run this fundraiser for Pirate Packs, they effectively waved me off this year. They insisted I had to stay home and take care of Nancy after her surgery, and that provided my bride doesn't have a similar procedure on her other hip next spring, I should be back for Dayton, Disneyana in June of 2026. But anyway, back to Tom Tumbush. Tom not only published those illustrated Disneyana catalogs and price guides, but he was also the guy behind Tomart magazine. In fact, he had just published issue 82 of that excellent publication, which repeatedly shined a spotlight on Disney collectibles. He sent it off to the publishers when he passed away in July of 2016 at the age of 75. And I want to say it was a year or so before that sad event where Tom and I were sitting down at the Scheingold's house, Anita and Gary, after each year's Dayton Disneyana, they hold a dinner back at the house as a thank you for all of the speakers. And so you get to enjoy this great meal as well as play with the Scheingold's very large assortment of cats and dogs. It always seems like there's more than a dozen. Anyway, I'm sitting at the Scheingold's dining room table next to Tom Tumbush, and the topic of Kay Kamen comes up. And Tom then has two very interesting stories to share. One is that Walt was especially heartbroken when Kay Kamen died in that plane crash in the Azores in October of 1949. You have to understand that Walt had just begun working on his idea for Disneyland the year previous. In fact, we know that because there's a memo that he sent to Dick Kelsey in August of 1948. Kelsey was a production designer at Disney Studios, and Walt wanted his input on what a family fun park might look like. But anyway, according to what Tom told me, as soon as Kay finished nailing down all of the studio's licensing deals for Cinderella, which again was supposed to be released to theaters February of 1950, Walt reportedly had plans to put Kamen to work developing a full licensing and retail program for Disneyland. But of course, that gets derailed by Kay's tragic death in that plane crash. All right, now, speaking of Kamen's death, Walt's brother Roy reportedly had a very different reaction to Kay's sad passing. He reportedly saw Kamen's death, again in October of '49, as an opportunity to right the ship, to get Disney Studios back on the same sort of footing that other big outfits in Hollywood had, when it came to licensing deal, as in the guy who licensed the rights to make toys and collectibles. They typically got a 5 or 6% cut of all retail sales, while the studio got to keep the bulk of the money. And very weird little bend on the story, Lauren. Because of the nature of Kay Kamen's original deal with the Disney Brothers in regard to licensing the films and the shorts as the studio made from 1932 through 1949, Roy was reportedly always terrified that Kay's two daughters from his first marriage would someday come forward and insist that they were entitled to 50% of all of the merchandise sales that Disney Studios made off of the re-releases of Snow White, Pinocchio, Fantasia, Dumbo, Bambi, and Song of the South. And this supposedly was because the lawyers who worked at Disney Studios, they reviewed Kay Kamen's original contract and then the renewal from 42. And they looked at it and they were like, Roy, if Kay's daughters ever come forward, there is a really solid case here that they would in fact be entitled to half of again, mind you, it's specifically those films that were made from, through 32 through 49, but it's just like the language here, it's pretty clear. And it doesn't say anything about the original release, or more to the point, it doesn't say anything about the re-release. Anyway, this is why I miss Tom Tumbush. He was a guy who had the sorts of insights and stories that nobody else had, largely because he was one of the very first Disney historians who came through the door in the late 70s, early 80s. And he got to interview a lot of the guys who worked directly with Walt for decades while they were still alive. Oh, and just in case you're wondering, Kay Kamen's second wife, her first name was Kate. So how cute is that? Kate Kamen and Kay Kamen.
Aww.
They lived in New York City, and Kate made her living working in fashion. In fact, she was traveling with Kay on this ill-fated trip to France. And while her husband was off selling Disney's retail reps in Paris on Cinderella, Kate was meeting with top designers in the city. She was determined to bring the very best in Parisian design back to New York for Press Week, which was what Fashion Week used to be called back in the 1940s. By the way, that got started in 43. And anyway, Kay and Kate were on the same plane that went down in the Azores in 49. And I'm really hoping that if Keith B. gets to pursue his book project, we will eventually learn more about this fascinating man's career and not just the stories that Tom Tumbush told me over dinner at the Shine Golds. And speaking of eating, at Gary and Anita, I had breakfast at their place a number of times, which brings us back to Disney breakfast cereals, which will be a topic that we will return to on the second half of this feature. But first, this.
Smart Water Alkaline with antioxidant.
Whoa, that's refreshing.
And a 9.5 plus pH for every way you move.
I did take a Spain class today.
Restoring like a pro. Smart Water Alkaline with antioxidant. For those with a taste for taste. Grab yours today.
Anyone can follow. It takes something special to be an original. Which is why the 2025 Lincoln Navigator SUV arrives with new ways of surrounding you in luxury, including the ultra-wide 48-inch panoramic display and the multi-sensory Lincoln Rejuvenate experience. A true original never stops evolving. So meet the 2025 Navigator, the original that's all new and better than ever. Learn more at Lincoln.com. Lincoln and Navigator are trademarks of Ford or its affiliates.
Talk about stepping up! It's time to level up your game. Introducing the all-new ESPN app. All of ESPN, all in one place. Your home for the most live sports and the best championship moments.
The electricity is palpable.
Step up your game with no annual contract required. It's the ultimate fan experience. Level up for more on the ESPN app or at stream.espn.com. Sign up now.
And we're back. Okay, cereals. By the way, Lauren, did you see the big news this week? How Kellogg's has committed to removing synthetic dye from its line of breakfast cereals by the end of 2027. Did you see this?
I did not, but thank you for that.
Okay. Well, you got to wonder what sort of impact this decision is going to have on Kellogg's Disney Princess cereal, which, by the way, is strawberry flavored and features marshmallows that are shaped like blue crowns and purple pink flowers. And as Lauren mentioned very early on in today's show, we've been in the middle of World Princess Week, and we were just talking about, the stuff that's being offered, Food and Wine. And what's interesting is the parks just this past week, as part of Princess Week, they had things like Rapunzel berry and cream cake, which is a vanilla cake, a lemon cheesecake mousse, and blackberry jam, and then Tiana's mint chocolate chip bar, which, what is that? That's mint chocolate chip mousse with cocoa sable. And I was just fascinated that Kellogg's did not get in on the fun. I mean, Lauren, you cannot tell me that somewhere out there, there's not a recipe for making a Rice Krispie treat-like thing out of Disney Princess cereal. Oh, by the way, Disney Princess cereal originally hit store shelves back in 2005 as a limited edition product. And you look at the front of the box, it's a giant image of Cinderella, and surprise, surprise, 2005 is the year that the Blu-ray version of Cinderella is hitting store shelves. In fact, October of that same year. And if you got yourself a bowl of that version of Disney Princess cereal, or you were staring down into this pile of pink and purple hearts that were then interspersed with little marshmallow wands, castles, roses, and crowns. So I'm sorry, Lauren, to me, that's a bowl of diabetes right there.
But it sounds delicious. I'd love it. I like it just with the marshmallows. I don't even need the cereal.
Well, there we go. Okay, so again, we were talking about how on last week's show, we talked about how Kay Kamen cut a deal in the mid-30s with Post cereal to put Disney characters in the back of every box of Post Toasties that was sold in North America. Now, on this week's show, we're going to talk about a different edict that came down from on high at the Mouse House some 20 years after that. This would have been spring of 54. And that was that for the foreseeable future, Disney Studios was not supposed to license any of its cartoon characters to appear on food products. Now, and again, you work broadcasting, so in the broadcasting world. So this was what Walt was thinking. The Disneyland TV show would be launching on ABC on October 27th of that same year, 1954. And the company's fear was that they wouldn't be able to convince outside corporations to come by commercial time on the Disneyland TV show if there were products out there with Disney characters on them that that directly competed with the products that these outside companies were producing. Now, mind you, there are already food products out there at this time that have long-lasting associations with Disney characters. I think we talked about them in a recent episode of I Want That Too, Donald Duck Orange Juice, Peter Pan Peanut Butter. But since those contracts were signed years ago, there was nothing Walt could do about these. But again, the point of curtailing any additional deals until the Disneyland TV show was officially launched in October of 54 and then had established itself as a rating success, which, with the hope then that corporations would then actively pursue whatever available commercial time, whatever slots were still open for the weekly TV series. So you get the strategy, Lauren. This is Walt and Roy playing it safe, right? Doing whatever they have to in advance to set the Disneyland TV show up for success. Now, mind you, once the late summer of 55 rolls around, well, the Disneyland TV show is now a smash hit. It's about to begin its second season on ABC. That kicks off September 14th of that same year, 55. By the way, with the network television premiere of Dumbo. But now all bets are off. Companies are beating a path to Disney Store. They're looking to buy whatever commercial time is left for Disney's weekly TV show. And among the companies that has come to chat with Disney is General Mills. And what they're offering Walt is a very interesting deal. If his company will agree to let General Mills advertise its breakfast cereals, which, by the way, that's Wheaties, Cheerios, Kix, and Trix, General Mills will then agree to use the exterior of all of these cereal boxes to promote various Disneyland attractions. And by the way, Lauren, huge campaign. We are talking about 18 different Disneyland ride shows and attractions being replicated on the boxes of these General Mills breakfast cereals.
Oh, wow.
All right, there are boxes that feature street scenes of Frontierland and Tomorrowland. There's others that specific attractions at the park. Sleeping Beauty Castle, the Rocket to the Moon. And now, mind you, all right, the idea here is after you finish eating the cereal, you're supposed to borrow Dad's penknife and then poke holes in already designated spots in the exterior of this cereal box. And by the way, you're following the instructions on the box. Here's the text on the outside of the General Mills box, which is part of their, no lie, this is what it's called, Disneyland Light Up campaign. So it says, light them up. They look so real, you can imagine you're visiting famous Disneyland Park at night. Just use your Christmas tree lights and see diamonds sparkle mysteriously in the Seven Dwarfs Diamond Mine, or Captain Hook's pirate ship, or even the Frontier Stagecoach. 18 exciting scenes in all. Watch them sparkle and glow. Now, Lauren, I want to stress here, this is in a major American corporation back in 1955 telling children. Well, first of all, get Dad's penknife and poke holes in a cardboard box. Then stuff this same cardboard box with your family's Christmas lights. Plug them into an electric socket.
And those things got hot back in the day.
Oh, my God, yes. Okay. And then set it up to glow all night in your bedroom. I mean, it's not like any of this stuff was actually flammable, as you mentioned, could possibly overheat. I mean, what's the worst that could happen here? Your kid's bedroom burns down? I mean, what's the likelihood of that happening, Laura?
It was so pretty.
You know, remember, small children are always extremely safety conscious when it comes to electricity and things overheating. Am I right?
And knives.
Yeah, and knives. There we go. All right. So, but to bring this full circle, you know who had a full set of these things? Tom Tumbush. And I'm not going to lie, when he lit all 18 of these General Mills cereal boxes up for me, which, by the way, he had stuffed with Christmas lights, which, had been approved by the underwriter's lab. But I'm not going to lie, they look cool. But at the same time, Tom only kept these things lit up for like 5 minutes, and then deliberately unpacked everything because he's like, first of all, this is the late 90s, early 2000s when he's doing this for me. But these now 50-year-old cereal boxes, extremely dry, flimsy pieces of cardboard. Oh, man, Lauren, they looked flammable as hell. But anyway, on next week's show, we'll continue the Disney cereal saga and talk about how a certain bear of very little brain moved an awful lot of cereal.
All right, more cereal. But on that note, I think that it is time that we close up the cereal box for today, or close up shop, as we like to say around here.
Well, I love that. And more to the point, the fact that we're not talking about the lady and her subdermal, magic band. I'm just going to give you points for that. But yes, I think at this point we should close up shop for this week. And so, folks, if you want to keep tabs on everything that's happening across the Jim Hill Media Podcast Network, and by the way, we just launched a brand new show. The Case 4 with Chris Cox. Please check that out. But yeah, please follow us on social. And don't forget to check out our Patreon for bonus shows and early access.
Yes, and if you liked today's episode, please take a second, leave us a review.
And if you got a question or an idea for a future episode, feel free to shoot us a message at, you can reach me at jim@jimhillmedia.com. And Lauren, you are?
Lauren at laurenhersey.com. And tell us if you ever considered putting a magic band RFID tag under your skin.
Okay.
But on that note, folks, it does it for today's show. We'll see you next time on I Want That Too.